Hey guys and girls, welcome to this week's episode of Tuesday Night Live with Birchie. This one's going to be a big one today. Um, Lots of interesting things to be talking about. So I'll wait online, and obviously there's lots of elephants in the room today to talk about, and lots of interesting things. So as everyone gets on board, I've got a few little points here, very specific, because tonight I could go on for hours. I believe I could sit here for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. One, talking about the excitement, two, talking about the opportunities, and three, just trying to explain what is happening in our weird world that we live in. So, um, today, just a bit of an agenda of what I'm going to talk about. I've got heaps of notes here, heaps of cool things to talk about. But today, elephant in the room, interest rates go up by 50 basis points, 0.5%. Everyone might be saying, Birch, you said interest rates are going to come down. I still believe they are, but obviously the writing there is a part of the journey for us to get to where we're going. Tonight we're going to be covering off the greatest recession about to happen in the 21st century. The economy is not as strong as they make it out to be. Looking at some of the things where inflation is hitting, whether it be phone companies, whether it be electricity, power prices, your household bills soaring, and what is the story behind these costs. But first and foremost, as I was just at the motel checking out Renault, my face has been hit with heaps of wind. It's really, really cold out there, and I had two jackets. I actually had a snow jacket on today, so I just come back from that. And I've got an interesting story to talk about that as well. But I was making some points on my way back of what my views are, which are very different to lots of people, because I'm seeing people sending me articles. All of us, most of you guys, switched on enough to understand and have an understanding of what is happening out there. But there's a lot of people, whether I log on to Facebook and see tags that people have tagged me as news articles and stuff like that, and they're like, Birchie, what do you think of this? And I see all the comments on there, people freaking out and everyone going crazy. And it's like, we know that there's a lot of lies out there. We know that the media is full of shit. And there's lots of, fluff out there. So that's what I want to hope to get through tonight with all of this. But most importantly, a lot of you guys might be sitting there thinking, Nathan, why are you so happy for, right? And let me just break things down a little bit for me. If anyone was to be sad, upset, scared, it would be myself, right? I have about 20 mil worth of debt in my portfolio. 1% interest rate rise would mean negative $200,000 a year. So every 1% rates go up, I have to pay an extra 200 grand a year out of my pocket straight away, gone, right? So if interest rates go up 5%, it's $1 million a year that I'll be negative from where I would be today with current interest rates. So I guess with knowing that, that's why I get so excited and so passionate about it, because if I don't understand what's happening out there, I could make some silly, costly mistakes out there. So today, looking at it, a lot of people may not be feeling the comfort and the confidence that I share and my vibes, right? So just remember that if I'm, the most affected out there, I don't know who's got 20 mil or more in debt, but let's assume not many people would. I understand how things are working, and I'm still very confident with my position. There's a few reasons behind that. If you're not feeling confident, there might be one of three things that may be hurting you, and I don't mean to be a dick about saying it, right? One, I think there's a lot of gamblers out there in the marketplace, people that are looking for a quick win. They're valuing currency, fiat currency, they're valuing money over a long-term strategy. So you might be a gambler. There's nothing wrong with that. There's monopoly above me here. You don't fully understand how the system works, so you're not across how calculated the markets are, right? These things that they're putting out there in the media, the propaganda, the moves that they're making, you may not be, as aware or as alert or as educated as to what is happening and how that could affect you. Or three, you may not have a solid strategy. A lot of people have been speculating out there over the last few years, right? It's pretty easy to make money in the property market. Most people are making money in the property market. That has been scary for me for many years, for the last 3 years, as the market's been going crazy. And I actually welcome this market they're in. So if I was someone to be scared, the people that should be scared would be the people paying premiums for infill sites, building a brand new house and land package for $1.5 million with a house with no eaves on it. Buying something that's off the plan, that's overcommitted. You're paying too much for the item, expecting and hoping and anticipating that it's going to go up before it settles. Those sort of things which you should be scared on. I guess from my position, the reason why I'm not scared, because I know my position. I've had a solid strategy from day one. I've always talked about buying the properties below market value, building a recession-proof property portfolio. I think it's very, very important. So the properties below market value, if the market shits itself, you can sell them, offload them, don't lose money. Step number one. Step number two is if you are buying them where they've got a positive cash flow, well, then that cash flow is going to look after itself. Third one is making sure it's got upside for growth, which is why most people go and accumulate assets for. The fourth one, which is buying it below rebuild cost. So in a very high inflation environment, very, very important to do so. And number five, buying in areas which are not capped out. So I saw this occurring where some people are going to get burned in the specific market we're in. It appears that across the nation, a lot of the wages, like when you add two incomes together, etc., the sweet spot across the country is between $1.2 to $1.7 million in that price range. That's where the market sort of, the bottom gets dragged up to that level. Once you go past that level, it's a different territory. But in that level, if we've now got 0.75% rate increase, that cap might come down from 1.2 to 1.7 to 1.1 to 1.6 or 1.05 to 1.5. So be aware of that. You want to be buying properties with assets that can sustain. If you're buying a property with a 200,000 average local area around it, well, then the income to support that, you could do that on 40 grand a year. So very important to have a strategy around that. Everyone's thinking, is the property prices going to crash? Are they going to go up? I'd love them to crash. I think things might destabilize a little bit. Some markets have been overcooked, so you might find some opportunities out there. But for me, the fun that I've been having in the last 2 years is not buying properties in the Gold Coast, right? I bought 50 properties a month for myself, for my investors, for about 7 or 8 years in the Gold Coast, Brisbane market. I haven't been buying much in there in the last 2 years. I've been buying everywhere else. And the reason being is that I like to go into markets when they're suppressed. People used to laugh at me for buying those markets. I saw the opportunity that when the markets were to take off, that's where the value would lay in those sort of markets. The markets that I'm buying today are cheaper than what they were 10 years ago. So let me just be clear on that. We've seen all this boom, all this growth, all these things going up in value. Probably 90% of the properties that I'm buying in 2022 and 2021 are and were properties that are selling today cheaper than what they were 10 years prior. Why? Because they're below rebuild cost. They've got good upside for growth. They've been suppressed so far, and they haven't had all the people piling in and FOMOing and all that. That's where the Johnny come laters come. So those markets, you want to be buying them where they've got extreme value. So that's having a solid strategy around that. A lot of people that should be scared, I guess, in this market are those that have been buying on speculation. They bought a property for 300, or they bought a property that used to be 300 grand 2 years ago. It's now selling for 600. They've got in, the property's never been that high beforehand. And, that property, they're expecting it to double. They're expecting it to go up. Why is it expecting to go up? Because it's been a big Ponzi scheme. So I think my excitement also comes from the fact that if we've got this big market and we've got people they're not educated, right? They're not educated in what's happening out there. They're not educated. They're being sold the American dream, right? Not the American dream. So someone's calling me here. What's going on here? Someone's doing a FaceTime video call from a tradie in Queensland that's trying to call me. Looking at the Australian dream, right, or whatever the dream is. Um, firstly, they say you need to be asleep to be living it, right? But most importantly, like everyone's being sold the narrative from the media. Go become a good student, get a good job, buy a house, get into debt forever. This is what's going to happen. They go and trust the almighty, pray to the TV, pray to the propaganda outlet, and that is where the devil lays, is in that detail. One thing to be mindful of, right? I find this humorous, right? We look at places like Channel 9 News. Who's the CEO of Channel 9 News? It's Peter Costello. Right? Who remembers Peter Costello? He's the guy from the Howard Costello government back in the 1990s and the early 2000s. He's now runs Channel 9. Who are the people behind the media? Who controls the media? Who are the advertisers in the media? Where does the content come from? Every time you go and look on any of these publications, you will see negative things about interest rates and stuff. And what do they encourage people to do? They encourage people to go and fix their interest rates, right? They go and fix their interest rates at a higher level. So when they drop the interest rates in the future, that people are locked in for 5 years. So they're making a lot of money out of this, right? This is a big game to be played. So it's a big bet for people. So just be mindful that there's a trap out there of the market spruiking, mainstream media spruiking to fix interest rates, to get people into fear mode. 2 years ago, we got people into fear, and they went out and did certain things to their bodies, were forced into that, got into fear, and it happened. So just be mindful that we're being sold a dream. Who's sporting this dream, right? So let's look at that. In that same token, right, what's keeping the market alive and what's keeping the market going and all that sort of stuff. I haven't looked up the recent ABS statistics, but last time I looked at it, maybe 2 years ago, we were short about 350,000 dwellings in this country. That would have grown. Yes, we've had a big Ponzi scheme of a lot of building and a lot of things that have happened the last couple of years. But if we think about it, right, we've got all the builders going broke today, right? That's one thing. Got heaps of builders going broke. My point when I said that I went out to the motel and I just got hit with all the wind is one of my trades was there, and he was telling me how he's got 4 builders that he's been working for, 4 other builders, and they haven't paid him, right? And he's like, Nathan, thanks a lot for paying me, all that sort of stuff, but they're not paying him. And I said, just be very careful, because you've got all your trades, you've got all your team. These builders are falling like flies. Make sure you don't let a bill run up too big, because you don't want to be the one carrying the bag. And unfortunately, there's lots of trades that are going to be experiencing this, where people can't get the funding, they're not getting the stimulus packages, the builders are going broke, jobs aren't getting completed. So be very mindful of that. But let's assume that we've got the shortage of 350,000 or whatever it was in dwellings. We've had 2 years of crazy building. We've got Metricon, for example, right? Australia's largest builder. They build, from my understanding, about 4,000 properties per year, right? 4,000 properties a year is like pissing in that wind that's flying at you. It's going to do nothing, right? We've got bailouts occurring that we don't see every day of the week. We've got bailouts happening to these building companies, and they can only build 4,000 a year. So what is the real issue? It's the fall of our currency, it's the fall of our money, and it's very evident. Like 2 years ago, I was filming on the whiteboard next door, and people were laughing, hyperinflation, stop, doing whatever you're doing, alleging that I was doing drugs because it was off my head. I was talking stuff that was very foreign back then, but we can see we're in the midst of some very weird times, which is the very early days to hyperinflation. You might be fearful of what's happening out there at the moment. Hyperinflation is not here yet. It is very strong inflation. We're going to see the recession that we should have seen in 2019 that would eventually lead into a depression. The only reason why we averted that depression was that they printed lots of cheap, easy, available money for everyone, and that rug has been pulled. They have taken away stimulus packages. They've taken away cheap credit. It's still very cheap, right? If you don't think less than 1% is cheap, you've got rocks in your head. Very, very cheap credit. And yeah, it was built up on a Ponzi scheme of stimulus packages that caused this to happen. So for me, speculating on new builds, it has not been anything. You've not heard me talk about doing new builds in the last 2 to 3 years. I was very big on new builds before inflation, when we could get stock very cheap, and before all these stimulus packages. So there was probably 200 homes that I helped people build, probably in about 2016, 17, 18, leading up to 2019. But I saw the writing on the wall that that was a window of opportunity. So I guess, what is the opportunity now? For me, getting trades cheaper, which is great. I've got lots of trades that want to do work. I've got less competition because builders aren't in business and whatnot. I've been hating buying in the sort of what would it be called? The speculator sort of market, right? The FOMO. Everyone's getting FOMO and they're like, yeah, let's buy and all that. I like the fact that real estate agents are begging to me, right? I like the fact that agents are like, hey, Nathan, what's going on? What do you need? I'm liking that. Does that mean the sky's going to crash in? Does that mean that we are stuck in a period where we're going to see property crashes, right? And that's what we're going to talk about, understanding the mathematics of the game at hand. So I'm excited to take advantage of the opportunities that are ahead of us here, because it might be got lots of questions coming through. Keep the questions coming through, and I'll jump into your questions in between my notes here that I've got. So in short, what do I see happening here? I am seeing interest rates, obviously, we've got the article here from the RBA, so we'll read through it. I'm not too concerned by it, but let's read it anyway. At this meeting today, the board decided to increase the cash rate by 50 basis points. I actually said yesterday 50 basis points because I felt like that's where it was going to hit. Inflation in Australia has increased significantly. While the inflation is lower than most other advanced economies, it is higher than expected. Global factors, including the illness-related disruptions to supply chains. I can't even read this straight, guys. Global factors, including the illness disruptions to supply chains and the war in Ukraine. Right? It's the war in Ukraine, guys. Don't worry. Go and change your Facebook profile picture, put a little ring around it with yellow and blue supporting Ukraine. It's all Putin's fault. It's China's fault. It's the virus's fault. It's not one bit here. There's not one bit here that says we're a corrupt central bank and we printed so much money and we scammed the shit out of everybody. That's why you're paying too much for shit now. Nothing. There's nothing in there. The amount of account for much of this increase to inflation. How can this thing about this, guys? The illness, disruptions to supply chains, the war in Ukraine account for much of this increased inflation. Are you serious? You fucking serious? That Ukraine is the reason why you've been seeing increases in everything for the last 2 years? Didn't your Datsun 1600 triple in value 2 years ago? Right? Why is that occurring? It's because they printed so much cheap money. And all this shit's going to collapse. It's going to absolutely collapse and tank in the ass. So, will it? Or will they come and save it again? That's the question, right? That's the question. That's the bet that I'm very confident on, right? This is a glitch in the matrix. But domestic factors are playing a role too, with capacity restraints in some sectors, with the tight labour market contributing to the upward pressure on prices. The tightening labour market, as far as I see it, guys, because I have you guys contacting me quite regularly saying, Nathan, I don't want to get inoculated, right? No fucker's changing my DNA. No one's going to force me and I'll quit my job, right? How many nurses, doctors, teachers, all these shortages, where did they go? Have we suddenly got all these new jobs out there looking for them? No. We've just lost half of our workforce and people are going, fuck it, I'll work from home. I'll build an Amazon business. I'll go traveling in my caravan for a year, whatever it is, because people don't want to be bullied with what's going on. They don't want to be entered into the new digital system that's happening. So They're saying that the tight labour market is causing this. The floods earlier this year have affected some prices also, right? I'm not laughing because of floods, right? But the prices of shit were going up way before floods occurred. You still feel like you're being told the truth from your media, from your central banks, from the corporations that control you? If you do, just go rent one of our properties and don't worry about investing, because there's going to be winners, there's going to be losers, and this is going to be a market where money goes from weak hands to strong hands, right? And these guys have very strong hands. They know what they're doing, right? This is their game, right? I am excited. I've got no need to tell you about any of this, right? I've got no need. I don't care. I could be at home. I could be doing whatever. But, you know, it is what it is. So inflation is expected to increase further, but then decline backwards towards the 2 to 3% range next year. Higher prices for electricity, gas, and recent increases in petrol prices mean that, in the near term, inflation is likely to be higher than it was expected a month ago. Huh, wow. As the global supply side problems are resolved and commodity prices stabilise, even at a high level, inflation is expected to moderate. Today's increase in interest rates will assist with the return of inflation to target it over time. Okay, let's look at that. Right? Someone in a business, let's say that you're looking at a phone company. Let's say that you're looking at Woolworths. Let's say that you're looking at the trucking company that owns all the trucks that go along the road to deliver you all the shit, right? Do they have debt? You betcha they have debt, right? That debt that they have is based on a bank bill swap rate. That isn't a 4.99% interest rate where you go and get your house revalued. No, they're lines of credit. They are bonds that are being bought. When you have inflation and you have bonds, this causes an implosion, right? We're going to see the bond market somewhere in about the 12, 18, 24 months time, the whole bond market fucking die, right? We're going to see the yields invert. So we're going to see bonds that are at 3 months paying more than a bond at 10 years, and then they have to put more liquidity in the system. And that's going to cause this next boom cycle. And that's the exciting part, because when we see the next boom, we're going to see hyperinflation, and that's where the fund's going to be. A lot of people are going to get screwed with that as well. But, you know, prepare yourself. Looking at what was I going to say before? And I forget what I was saying. I just got excited. I'm getting too excited by this stuff. But, yeah, so companies with bank bill swap rates. So if you've got a trucking company delivering all your shit, they were paying last month a 1% spread. They were paying a 15 basis point rate, so they were paying 1.15. And now it went up to 1.35. And today it's now gone up to 1.85. So that means within 35 days, we have seen the cost of those companies' debt, which could be 50% of their expense bill, whatever it is the expense bill, we've now seen that double in a month, right? So when we start compounding these things, right, do you think interest rates are coming down? Have you ever seen the shops go, oh, yeah, we're going to drop your phone bill. We're going to drop the price of cars, right? You don't see these things happening because they don't go down, right? How's the system going to support this change moving forward, right? It's not. We've got someone earning $500 a week. We've got someone earning $1,000 a week. We've got someone earning 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, whatever the fuck you're earning every week. But now that money is going to cost you a lot more. Your food's gone up, your electricity's gone up, your car's gone up, your price has gone up, your wage hasn't gone up. Now let's just throw that you get a wage increase into the mix. What's going to happen? Well, the cost of goods is going to move further. Therefore, inflation is going to get higher, right? Wait until I get to my 5th article today, because that's a really fun topic for us to discuss. But anyway, we'll get back to these really satanic looking. Look at this logo. I always have to bring the logo up, right? Why does it look like the devil? It just looks like the devil. Yeah, anyway. The labour market is also strong. Employment has grown significantly, and the employment rate is 3.9%, which is the lowest rate in 50 years. Do you remember how Scott Morrison used to cook the curry every week? Right? That wasn't the only thing he was cooking. He was cooking the fucking books, right? Because that ain't real. That ain't real. There's Ponzi schemes out there. They're putting, oh, look, go to job seeker, job keeper. Oh, if you're on job seeker, job keeper, job creator, career training packages, whatever, you're now classed as a student, so you're not unemployed. You're out there in the education space, right? So it's just fun to understand what they're doing here. Job vacancy and job ads are at high levels, and a further decline in unemployment and underemployment is expected. The bank's business liaison program continues to point at lift wages, grow from the low rates of recent years as firms compete for staff in a higher market. Anyway, here we go. The board will be paying close attention to the global outlook, which remains clouded by the war in Ukraine, the effect on the prices for energy and agricultural commodities. What about when they take your meat away? What about when they give you plastic food? Let's wait and see what happens there. We talked about this 6 months ago. Real household incomes are under pressure in many economies and financial conditions are tightening as central banks withdraw monetary policy support. Look at that. Just read that line. As central banks withdraw monetary policy support in response to a broad-based inflation. So we take away all the stimulus packages. Let's not even put interest rates up too far. You take away all the stimulus packages, everything goes broke, right? Here we are. There are also ongoing uncertainties related to the illness, especially in China. Guys, it's not just inflation in one or two areas of your life, right? My mum, bless her, right? I spoke to her this afternoon and she said, Nathan, my grocery bill's gone up so high. Everything's gone up so high. I said, Mum, I warned you of this a couple of years ago. We'll be right. Don't worry about it. We'll be right. But a lot of people will not. Going back to the start of today's chat as well, just regarding the interest rate and just closing off on the interest rate comments for today, for the moment, sorry. A lot of people are focusing on interest rates, right? If you've got a $1.5 million loan and you're a sole breadwinner in a family or whatever, and you're paying for the house that you live in, it would be right reason to be scared, right? Like your expense has gone up it's gone up $15,000 a year in 1 month, right? So I can understand the uncertainty there, right? But going back to my initial comment as the 3 reasons to why you may be scared right now, if you had 10 properties at 150K and you're getting $300 a week rent on each one of them, and you're getting $3,000 a week, and you pushed your rent up by $50 each, you're getting an extra $500 a week now. So, trying to put my thing on mute so everyone doesn't hear my emails keep coming through. But yeah, looking at inflation, it just doesn't occur in specific markets. It's occurring broad range here. Talking to my staff today, talking to my investors, talking to my property management team and our revenue managers at Blink Property, and all my other sort of things that I have my fingers in. One thing I'm realizing is that rents are going up $50 a week, $100 a week, $150 a week, $200 a week. I'm loving it, right? Why am I loving it? Let's say just 100 of my properties go up by $100 a week. That's 10 grand a week. That's $500,000 a year I've had as an increase. Push my interest rates up, right? Push them up 200 grand a year. Push them up 400 grand a year. My rents are going up 500 grand a year, $1 million a year, right? Inflation is flowing in different areas. The debt is irrelevant when you have inflation. So as inflation creeps in, right, the debt becomes irrelevant because it's capped at a certain amount, and your income potential and growth potential is in perpetuity. So I know in the last year, I can see there's like dozens of my investors around here watching, and I can see jumping in and out of the video today. I know dozens of investors that have got an extra 50 grand a year in income in the last year. I know investors this year that have had 10 rents put up by $50 a week. That's $500 a week, 26 grand a year, right? You can't do that with selling your portfolio because you're scared of a fucking interest rate change, right? You're going to look back in 3 years' time and go, oh shit, the market's too hot, and all that. You need to understand how the money works. So follow the money, follow what happens with money, follow these things before they happen, and look for the excitement out there. I posted into Birch Feed just a little while ago this is a Twitter post. This is a Twitter post from a guy called Kim.com. Kim.com. Some of you may or may not know him. For those of you that know who Kim.com is, he is a quite famous guy. He's been raided from the cops and the feds. He's notorious with the system because he created a website, a bit like Napster back in the day. It's called Mega Upload. It was like a free data sharing site, and he was extradited, and the FBI chased him because he was trying to get free information. So all the corporations sent out their security guards, the FBI, and tried to arrest him. You can look up his position here, Kim.com, and he reads out, "This may be the most important thread I ever make. The big picture stuff about the major global collapse that is coming." So when I talk about understanding the money in the system, when I talk about understanding what's happening in this system, right? This ain't about your house, right? Your house is really irrelevant in the economy. Your house is a commodity. You're a commodity to the bank. If you don't have a loan, you're still a commodity because your property that you're trading in the market is contributing to the market of the bank. You're benefiting from the bank because some other sucker's going to get a loan for a bigger amount to pay you your money. You take your money and go do something else with it. When you realize the worst investment in the world for the last 50 years has been money. It's been money, right? The dollars that you use, whatever currency is that you use, it's the worst investment. So anyone that gives a fuck about their money, right, you're going to be in for a really big rude awakening. Who remembers 10 years ago, 20 years ago, who remembers growing up as a kid, you go, $100 is a fuck a lot of money, right? $100 won't pay your dinner bill right now. $100 won't pay for shit, right? $100 won't pay your petrol to get you home. $100 won't pay. I'm driving this little Mitsubishi Mirage at the moment. My car hasn't arrived yet. It's one of the Blink cars, right? It's one of my staff's cars, and I just drove it. And it cost $100 to fill up this tank. It's a 40-litre tank. It goes for 400 kilometers. It's like so shit, right? And it's $100, right? $100 gets you nothing. But if you saved that $100 all that time ago, it was like a lot of things you could have done with $100, you wouldn't even buy a tank of petrol now. In the years to come, your money's going to be worth a hell of a lot less. So let's have a look at what Kim.com has to say. I've shared this link in the Birch Feed. If you're not in there, go to the website, birchfeed.com. It's free. No need to be a tight ass. It's just free. Enter in your details. You get access to the Telegram group. I just shared it in there. So stay on here and watch it from here, and I'll run through it later. You can look at it later. But this goes to say, our leaders know, I'll try and help you understand the future is not what we're hoping for. It is worse than most can imagine, right? And if you think about what's worse than most can imagine, right, is a communist dictatorship with a new currency and a whole new platform for us to trade on that is going to be worse than China could ever be, right? That's the start of it, right? And if you think that it can't occur, what has happened in the last 3 years that we've been seeing? You've been locked in your house as a prisoner, you've lost control of your own body, you've been banished, you've been kicked out from your friends, whatever it may be, right? Divide and conquer. Interesting. Just think of it with an open mind. This is about the US, mind you, but this applies to everywhere around the world. The United States did not have a surplus or a balanced budget since 2001. In the last 50 years, the US only had 4 years of profit, right? What business survives with 4 years out of 50 years worth of profit? None. Real businesses go bankrupt. Bullshit businesses caught up in a Ponzi scheme, like anything on the stock market, well, they can experience 4 years worth of growth, profit in a year, then, out of 50. In fact, all the profit the US had would not be enough to pay for 6 months of the current yearly deficit. So how did the US pay for things? And it shows here the deficit, right? The 4 years that were here, and what happened around there. We had changes in monetary policy. We had the Y2K bug. We had lots of things happening like now. Then we had, some wars that occurred and some planes that didn't land in the right places and all that sort of stuff. The US is spending debt and debt have spiraled out of control, and the government can only raise the money it needs by printing it. And that causes inflation. It's like taxing you extra because you pay more for things than you need to, and all your assets decline in real value. See the US printing frenzy, right? So we've got here from 1971, and then it's gone up, and we've got these recessions, and after the recession, they print lots. So here's the recession here. After the recession, it goes up, starts declining. We have a new recession, then they print more. Then we go into a new recession, then they print a lot more, and we go into a new recession, and we can see it just straight line, like a hockey stick, right? And that's what's causing hyperinflation. It's the money that they are printing, right? It's so fucking obvious. But for our friends over the RBA, they didn't mention any of that. Oh, it was the war in Ukraine, and it was the poor shipping out of China, and it was the illness, and it was because of fucking rain bombs, right? Not that they're monitoring or manufacturing weather by any chance now, would it? Which was covered a lot on Birch Feed. Anyway, stay on track because I'm going to talk about property finance and why I'm the happiest guy when it comes to what is happening at the moment. The reason the US got away with it for so long is because the US dollar is the world's reserve currency. Nations everywhere hold the US dollar as a secured asset. So when the US dollar prints trillions of dollars, it's robbing Americans and the entire world. The biggest theft in history, right? They're just printing money. It's the worst investment you could ever have. The Aussie dollar's backed onto US dollars, and they trade in their bonds, and they package up as securities, and they, if you've seen The Big Short, it's the cat shit wrapped in dog shit. And that is why we have inflation. The problem is that this has been going on for decades, and there is now no way to fix it. The reality is the US has been bankrupt for some time, and what's coming is a nightmare, mass poverty, and a new system of control. Let me explain why this isn't just doom and gloom talk. This is the fun part, right? And this is why I calculated. This post was only made yesterday, I think. One of my mates sent it to me. So it's just a new post. So it's not like I've been reading it, getting my data, sharing it with you. I've been saying the same shit, but he's articulated and put it nicely here. So why can't they increase the interest rates? The interest rates are based on bonds. The bonds are based on money that's printed from the governments around the world. So as I said, if this occurs, right, we're going to see all the homeowners go bankrupt, the people go bankrupt, you and I go bankrupt, the corporations go bankrupt, your job go bankrupt, you won't have a job because your boss has gone bankrupt, the company's gone bankrupt, the government has gone bankrupt, the state that's gone bankrupt, everything goes bankrupt. So the US debt, right, is now $90 trillion. Australia has $1 trillion worth of debt right now, just to put things in perspective, because we're very small in comparison to all of the things. Like, we're not necessarily invading countries like the US may be and being another country's bitch, right? Everyone thinks the US is the superpower of the world, but I am not allowed to say which country controls the US, and it's pretty easy to see when you know what you're looking for out there, because I might be deemed as a different type of racist by saying that word. It's not allowed to come out of my mouth, but there's a country that controls US. But anyway, the US debt is $90 trillion. The US unfunded liabilities are at $169 trillion. Combined, that is $778,000 per US citizen, or $2,067,000 per US taxpayer. Remember, the only way the US government can operate now is by printing more money, which means hyperinflation is inevitable. The total value of all companies listed in the stock market in the US, this is $53 trillion. The real value is much lower because the US has been printing trillions of dollars to provide interest-free loans to investment banks to pump up the stock market. It's a scam. Most of the $53 trillion is air, right? So the bonds are bullshit. The stocks are bullshit, and that's why I don't own paper assets. So just remembering, US is in $90 trillion worth of debt. Unfunded liabilities is $169 trillion. The stock market's worth $53 trillion. The value of the US assets combined, every piece of land, real estate, all savings, all companies, Everything that all citizens own, their businesses, the entities, and the state that the state own is worth $193 trillion. That number is full of air, just like the stock market, right? Because who can really believe the valuations that go out there? So let's do the math. US total debt is 90 trillion. The unfunded liabilities is 90 trillion. That's 259 trillion minus all the US assets, which is 193 trillion. The balance is $66 trillion. So if you take away all the assets, it's still negative $66 trillion, right? If you sold everything that the US owned, their people, their soul, everything, right? There's a deficit of $66 trillion for 500 million people. If you break that down, let's say that we've got 1/20th of that. 66 trillion divided by 1/20th, that'd be like 3 million, would it be? Head's not working straight today. Got too many other things going on. That'd be Australia's debt to the country. Anyway, so even if the US could sell all of its assets, you did find a buyer at the current value, which is impossible, it would still go broke. The US is beyond bankrupt. The patient is already dead. As I said many years ago, our economy is in palliative care. It has a dialysis machine connected to it, and it is a vegetable state, right? It's been in a vegetable state for many, many years. That's my view. That's not in here. It's all a perception, denial and dependency. The monetary system, our belief in the government, the belief in everything is a mindset, right? It's like in the Matrix. It doesn't exist, right? It's just a belief system. Somehow in history, people had a belief and a faith in a religion, right? And here we are with people brainwashed with a belief system as the government, as the religion. Does that really add up? Doesn't add up for me. The perception is that the US has the largest economy and the strongest military in the world. But in reality, the US is broke, can't afford its army. The denial is that all nations depending on a strong US dollar or global markets will collapse. Just think about it this way. Our currency is called the petrodollar, right? A lot of people don't realize that. It's called the petrodollar because in 1971, President Nixon in the US took us off a Bretton Woods system and put us on the petrodollar, where basically the money was based on nothing. There's no gold, there's nothing backing it, and they could print as much as they want with the value based on oil. Problem is that works with oil value at under $100 a barrel. $50 a barrel, it still works. You know, $100, it doesn't really work. $60, $70, $80. There's oil shocks. You'd see it through the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the Saudi war, 2001, the weapons of mass destruction, all these wars that they've seen. And it always needs to stay in a range. If it goes too high, we have an issue. It goes too low, we have an issue. Right now, the funniest part that we've got is that oil is trading at $175 or something like that. It's never been tested there, and it will implode. This system is fucked, right? Our money is dead, but people haven't woken up to it. But that's fine. That's why I'm so excited, because I understand what's happening out there. I understand this is mathematically impossible for this Ponzi scheme to keep going at the rate it is. It's either going to crash, and if it crashes, everybody's assets get wiped off the board as well, or they can hyperinflate it away, and those that are in power have all their debt, all the assets that they've collected, and the debt becomes worth irrelevant. Because if you've got a $500,000 loan today, which might seem like a lot many years ago, if everybody's earning $2 billion a year and a hamburger costs $5 million, etc., your 500 grand loan will be paid off like a packet of chips. If you can hold on to it and you have a strategy which is going to take you through a recession-proof portfolio, which no one's really seen hyperinflation occur like this. So there is issues along the way, and there would be a point for me personally wanting to pay out debt personally. But yeah, and the other note I should make to everybody that I'm reading this stuff to, I'm just a crazy guy on the internet. If you're new around here, you haven't seen me talk before or whatever, I'm just a crazy dude on the internet that has a fake 150 million worth of asset, 20 mil worth of fake money that's in debt, a couple of hundred properties that I control. That's just my stats. It's not that I'm a financial advisor, and no financial advisor really understands how any of this shit goes, because they go to a 4-year pledge of allegiance to a university to get a degree on how to sell you products within a package, just as much as a doctor would sell you the products that they can sell within their 4 walls or parameter that they can talk about. You step outside, you lose your license, you get in a lot of trouble, and so what? But fortunate enough, I'm not a financial advisor. None of this financial advice. I'm not telling you to fix your loans, unfix your loans. I'm not telling you to sell property, not to keep property. I'm just sharing with you what I'm doing, my belief system, what I think's going to happen out there in my messed up delusional world of researching data and understanding and calculating what's out there in the system. Anyway, going back to Kim.com's post here, the reason why the US zombie keeps going is because the end of the US is in the Western prosperity, and the admission that the current system failed as the model for the world. It doesn't change reality. The collapse is inevitable coming. What are our leaders planning? So it's funny, right? I think about it. Everyone says China this, China that, China the next thing, whatever. And I actually remember having a chat with a mate of mine. He was actually my first staff member here. His name's Angelo. And he went to America and he set up a property company and all that sort of stuff. And I remember he was so in love with America, right? And he kept saying about, this, that, and the next thing. I said, mate, the money's a scam, the Ponzi scheme. I said all this stuff like 13 years ago. I was like 24 years old, 23, 24 years old. And I was relatively new to the space of understanding this stuff. I've learned a lot in the last sort of decade and a bit. And I remember saying to him that China deserves to be rich because America basically created a massive... They used to create, the reason why they became successful is they went through the Industrial Revolution, they created, they printed, and all these sort of things, and then that scheme blew up, and they went into the petrodollar scheme in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and where we are today. But the reality is that instead of them now making a bit of furniture, making a TV, they send it over to China. They go, these are our, for a better word, peasants that can make things cheap, right? We will print a credit card and we will pay them. But the problem is that they've printed too much money, and those people are now wealthy because there's been a transfer of wealth over to that nation. And China deserves to be successful like it is. However, imagine if you had a very successful economy over wherever you are, and someone came to you with a proposal and said, let's make your system communism, let's make your system, tracking, suppression, all that sort of stuff. You'd say get fucked, right? You wouldn't allow that. However, when they took this to China, and it's interesting when you look back in history, you can see the roles that have played here. When they've taken this system to China, right? And when I say they took it to China, the same people that built America built China, right? And it's a nation, and it's certain ruling powers of people. And, it used to be Britain, and then they made US like an offshoot of Britain, and then they separated the US from that, and then they shipped it off to China, and China's now the demo ground, the research and development for what the rest of the world is going to be rolled out to as a one world sort of government system, right? Which is your social credit system and environmental social governance, which is the ESG that's going to come out, which is a new currency, which is something of a different topic. But anyway, getting back to Kim.com's post. You may have heard about the Great Reset or the New World Order. Is this controlled demolition of all the global markets, economies, and the world as we know it? A shift to a new dystopian future where the elites are the master of the slaves without the cosmetics of democracy? As I laughed, right? You think that you voted for whatever the puppet's name is today, Albanese, right? No one voted for shit, right? You have a selection of a couple of people, which is a rigged game, and either one of them has to sell the agenda because of the products that they're being presented with from their puppet masters, yeah? Without a controlled demolition of the world will collapse for all, including the elites. The world has changed so much and nothing seems to make sense anymore. The blatant corruption is out in the open and the obvious propaganda, media, the erosion of our rights. What is the end game? That is a very, very nice post from Kim.com. Don't know the bloke, never spoken to him. I've seen his work, find him as an interesting character. That post, 110% agree with everything that's in it, right? Where are they taking it to? What will happen next? If this system blows up and doesn't get transferred well, then they lose all their assets as well. So it's a system. This is a liquidation of a system that we've been used to, and as this liquidation unfolds, we're going to see a lot of interesting things, and it's going to get ugly for a lot of people. Plan for yourself, right? I don't have any cares, right? I'm happy, right? I've got access to water. I've got access to food. I've got 3 springs, right? 3 springs on my property. They say you can't control the water rights on top of your property, but you can control the water underneath your property. Springs are pretty cool, as is ability to grow your own food, to have your own produce. All of these things are very, very much needed in one's life. Having the ability to access an off-grid situation, having power to create cash flow, having access to old currency, right? I think about this, right? I don't even know why I've got the pennies sitting here. They're just a bag of pennies, right? What would a penny have bought you back in 1961, right? This penny from 1961, it's got copper in it. It's just a copper penny, a loaf of bread, whatever, right? You can buy a bag of pennies, right? I think this is about a kilo, maybe 2. Don't know if it's 1 or 2 kilos. Let's assume it's 2 kilos, right? Let's say that a kilo is what's in my hand right now. Let's say that's a kilo. Whoops, where are we? Right, that's a kilo. And that's another kilo there, right? With these pennies, how many pennies would be in a kilo? I think there's about, how many is in a kilo? There's a fucking lot of them here, maybe 50. I think there's 104 in a kilo. 104 pennies in a kilo, right? Let's just say there's 50 pennies for the fun of it, right? What could a penny have bought back in the old days? Like a bag of pennies now, 20 bucks, 30 bucks, right? For a kilo of pennies. But what could you get 50 pennies for 20 bucks, right? 100 pennies for 20 bucks. But a penny could have bought you a loaf of bread back in the day, right? Let's assume that currency had no value and it wasn't fraudulent. A penny could still buy you a loaf of bread. So if you've got 50 or 100, you could have 50 or 100 loaves of bread sitting here, right? When people don't have access to currency, everyone writes their crypto and all these sorts of things that we would go to. It could be crypto, right? But crypto's a rigged game as well. This is physically tangible, right? You can trade in it. People will want to trade in it. So just be mindful of how to protect yourself through this. It's not all about property, but it's not all too fearful. I'm so excited by the fact that people are going to be watching the news. The same people, they get fearful about everything, right? And I'm telling you my plan, my view, my thoughts, what I'm going to do, right? It's just my thoughts. It's just my view, right? But I'm excited by seeing how many people are brainwashed out there. And when I come along and I have my deals, right, that I'm going to do over the course of these next years, throughout each different phase of this reset that they talk about, I'm excited by picking up all the fucking chess pieces off the... I've said it from day one. I said it 2 years ago. It's like there's a big fire. Everybody's going to run for the door. The people that don't get out the door, they're going to get burned. The people that are sitting in the room are going to lose all the oxygen. I'm going to crawl into the furthest corner, pick up all the pieces, all the wallets, the rings, the watches, the phones, everybody's handbags, and I'm going to take them to a cupboard. I'm going to sit over there in the corner and calculate that there's a 4-hour burn time for the building to burn down and to get through that stairwell, and I'll just sit in the fire cupboard or fire stairs or where the fire sprinkler is or whatever the case may be and wait, because I know that the alarm's going to be called, the firefighters are going to come in, put out that big fire, and I'm going to be safe. I'm going to emerge from the fire. I'm going to have everyone's assets. And I see that opportunity because it's calculated and predestined that that's when the fireys will come, which is the plunge protection team, the stimulus packages, the central banks are going to come out and they're going to have to bail it out, and they're going to pick up everybody else's shit whilst it's on sale. It's very easy to see. Anyway, looking at this next article, I haven't read this next article. Carolyn from my office has put it here for me. But let's have a look through it. Coming down to earth, the economy is not as strong as we have been led to believe. The message from this week's national accounts is that the economy is nearly as strong with a capital S as Scott Morrison and Josh Frydenberg unseasonably claimed it was during the election campaign. In truth, is coming down to earth. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, real growth to domestic product is the nation's total production of goods and services grew by 8.8% during the 3 months to the end of March, up to be up 3.3 over the year. Almost to a person, the business economist said, and the media echoed, this was higher than expected, but this just meant it was a fraction higher than they'd forecasted a day or two before the announcement. Once most of the building blocks of the figure had been revealed. It's got a little sort of cartoon thing there. It's got the cartoon on this side. Anyway, but as the Treasurer Jim Chalmers has revealed, when the Treasury was preparing for its forecast of March 29 budget, it forecasted growth of not 0.8% for the quarter, but 1.8%. Now that would have been strong. True, if you compound the 0.8%, you get an annualised rate of 3.3%, and that's a lot higher than our average growth rate of the post-decade of 2.3%. But it is high because the economy is still completing its bounce back from the 2 pandemic lockdowns, which most people gained more income than they were allowed to go out and spend. In other words, it's catching up for highly unusual. All this is shit. It's all bullshit. I don't even like this article. But anyway, it's all bullshit. And I'll tell you why it's bullshit. Because I've got here another article, which I haven't read this one either. But just the heading, I like it. Right? I like this. I have seen it briefly, this one. But anyway, let's go through it together. Because it's not the only one. I posted an article just before I went live in Birchfeed. If you're not in Birchfeed, for those of you that are just new here, go to birchfeed.com, birchfeed.com. Enter in your details, get access to the Telegram channel. I post random shit in there all the time, stuff like we're talking about now. If you have friends, family, colleagues, whoever that you want to include in it, send them the link, get them to join up, get them to look at it as well. I posted in there about electricity prices, but we'll come to that in a moment. This one here, Australia's biggest mobile phone company warns higher bills inbound. Millions of cash-strapped Aussies will see their cost of living expenses go even higher this winter, with Telstra the latest to announce price hikes. Australia's biggest mobile network provider has flagged a price increase for both pre-existing and future plans, blaming the rising inflation. I love inflation. It's great. Telstra customers will receive a cheeky $3 to $4 per month increase in their phone bills from July 1, with the telco joints flagging that their costs will increase in line with the Consumer Price Index and warning that future plan pricing would include an annual review and may increase annually. So $3 to $4 per month. What's the average plan? Like $50 or something? $3 to $4 an average is like a 10%. That's a lot higher than the 3% they talk about and the 5% that they talk about, etc. The CPI is best known indicator of inflation and measures the percentage of change in the price of goods and services across the nation. Telstra said that they would use the CPI rate as a record by the Australian Bureau of Statistics. In tandem with the price hike comes a swanky rebrand of different plans. Some bonus features include to offset the price increases. Customers on the small plan get the biggest payoff on paper with a $3 per month increase coming with added 5G for the first time for the basic service. Anyway, we've got that one. I'm going to go to this Daily Mail article. The article that we've got here for Daily Mail, it was just a Daily Mail article. Don't take too much notice to it. I don't take too much notice to anything, but this is pretty interesting. It's just an article here. Anthony Albanese's government confirms it is considering cash payments to millions of families to combat the soaring cost of electricity. Such a nice bloke. Just remembering, none of this was his fault, right? None of this was his fault. Just remember that when it looks like it's his fault, it wasn't his fault. Not that I like the bloke, not that I vote Labor. Just it wasn't his fault. It happened. It was destined. to combat the soaring cost of electricity with prices to double in July, right? Double in July. Just get that. Like, when was the last time you saw electricity double in 1 month, right? Electricity is going to double. I actually have a prediction on that, and I think it could go up 4 times by Christmas, right? 4 times. So when you add 4 times the amount of electricity cost, and what is electricity cost? So let's say we have a shop, right? Let's say we have a Woolworths store. Let's say we have a McDonald's. Let's say we have whatever business it is out there. We have the cost of wages going up for the truck driver to bring all this shit. We've got wage increases for everyone along that supply chain. We've got doubling, tripling, quadrupling costs of electricity. We've got the costs of the debt doubling in a month, right? From 1.15%, which a business would be paying an interest rate, to 1.85 in 35 days. That's almost doubling in 1 month their cost of funding. So do you think that this is going to grow a little bit further when they have to go, well, shit, we're going to go broke? So you see these companies go bankrupt, like the building companies and everything else that's occurring out there, or do they pass it on to the consumer? So as we look at that, that was the Daily Mail article. I've just seen that Carolyn, so lovely, put an article here about the Australia's panicking as power prices skyrocket. So Robert Meggs like to keep close eye on how much electricity his household uses. It's one of the main reasons he switched to a smaller retailer some time ago as he searched for a better deal. It doesn't matter which company you go to, it's all going up. But where would you invest right now? Would you invest into maybe coal? It's cheap. Would you, it's green energy. They're not green energy. It's rubbish, right? Do you ever think that they're doing a bait and switch here and going, don't look at this and don't invest. We don't want to push the price up too high, because if that shit goes up, right? Infrastructure, guys, infrastructure. We rely on electricity to run the water pump that supplies the water around the house, and lighting and cooking as well. So it's very important to us. But not long after the new service started, he received news that left him stunned. His prices were set to more than double from July. More than double from July. Thousands of consumers have been getting similarly alarming notices from their power providers amid predictions of a UK-style energy crisis poised to engulf Australia. Let's just think about the energy prices, right? What changed? Did it mean that there's not enough power plants out there? Does it note that that there's not the same amount of air conditioners plugged in? Did everyone just suddenly get a new TV, right? We've just had lockdown and every fucker's been stuck in their house. Wouldn't you think the shortage of power would have been due to the fact that everyone would have been at home at that period of time? Wouldn't it mean that the power companies are more profitable if all this power is being used? Why? It's because the commodity prices are increasing. Damn, Nathan, you're too good. You're guessing everything. You're understanding it, right? And that's what we all need to look at. We need to look at what is happening, what is causing all this, right? Commodities, resources that you need to live your life. Invest in all the things that, if you don't need to go and buy a $12 avocado to feed your family, because you've got a tree that gives you 50 of them a week. If you can put a lemon tree out in your backyard, so you don't have to pay $2, and when that goes to $10 for a lemon, you're not shit out of luck to eat and feed your family. These are all investments that you can make in yourself. But this is my most exciting article. This came out actually just like this morning. Someone actually sent it to me. I forget. I think it was one of the community members. It was one of my friends that sent it to me, actually. This is our exciting article. So this is, if you've been watching for the whole night, for the last hour, this is the most crucial part of tonight's video. So Erdogan Erdogan, whatever his fucking name is, promises more rate cuts, plays down inflation. Whereabouts? In Turkey, right? Erdogan promises more rate cuts, plays down inflation in Turkey. Let's read this. This is from a very trustworthy source, Reuters, right? Very trustworthy, like all the other mainstream. A bit of this has been cut off, so I'm just going to go to the actual article and read it from the article. But this is the article here. Istanbul, June 6, Reuters, Turkey will continue cutting rates rather than hiking them. Very, very important. Just listen to this article. I shared this in the feed. I'm pretty sure I shared it in the feed. Turkey will continue cutting interest rates rather than hiking them in the face of high living costs. President Tayyip Erdogan, I'm sorry for all my Turkish viewers and friends and everyone out there if I've completely and utterly butchered this guy's name, said on Monday, playing down inflation of more than 70% has won several problems for the economy. He's playing down inflation of more than fucking 70%, right? 70% inflation. You think you're being told the truth when it's 70% inflation, or would it be higher? Imagine your petrol being 70% high, it just doubled, right? You're being told your CPI is 5.1%, right? Which is a fucking joke because your power's just gone up double. Your mortgage just gone up double. Your food's just gone up double. I don't know where the fuck they're pulling a figure of 5.1% here in Australia, or who's chained the jerking over in America at 7.8 or whatever the fuck they're saying it is, right? I'm sorry for swearing. I'm sorry for getting passionate. I just love this shit, right? Because it's so exciting. They're saying that interest rates here are going up, which is that piece of shit article we read from the RBA in their monthly notice, which is all rubbish because they said it was Corona and they said it was China and it was a supply and it was this and that, the next thing. Anyway, here we are reading an article about inflation in Turkey. So if you don't understand what is happening, so you've got a currency called the Turkish lira, which is like the dollar. We're using the dollar here. We use the yuan in China. We're using the lira in Turkey. That economy has been fucked for about 5 years, right? Their interest rates went down to nothing, and then their interest rates went up to like 60% because they've gone through a hyperinflation. Here in the country, as we go through the hyperinflation, we might see a 1% increase, 2% interest rate worth of increases. They're going to have to cut the shit away from that. They're going to have to drop those rates down, right? Because everything's going to crash. But it's the next cycle. And I said this from day one. If you think that I'm changing my tune or whatever, go back and listen to all my videos from 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago. I said we will see first stage of it. We will see it taper off. And then we would see massive hyperinflation. I never once said the hyperinflation was happening in 21, 22, or 23. I said it would come as a repercussion of the next. They've taken away all the weapons. There's no weapons here for them to fight inflation with. So anyway, this guy, in a speech, Erdogan has redoubled his commitment to boosting production, exports, and employment with his unorthodox low rates policy. He again promised a current account surplus when he eventually steadied the currency and cool inflation. How can you cool inflation when you've got 70%? In the history of all currencies that have ever existed, they've all fucking died with hyperinflations. Never have we seen them get this back on track. The remarks sent the lira down by 0.2% to as far as 16.6 to the dollar, its lowest since December, when its currency crisis was triggered by a set of unorthodox interest rate cuts sought by Erdogan. In turn, inflation soared to 73% last month. Inflation was 73% in a month. Imagine that. Your house doubles overnight. Anyway, it's not here. It's not here yet. And this is going to happen with every currency. It doesn't matter if it's the Turkish lira. It doesn't matter if it's US dollar. We are going to lose our currency. It is going to be absolutely bullshit what they put it onto. It's going to go to an ESG, which is a social credit system. Your biometrics, your Ganter, or whatever they call it, where you walk, how you walk, all that is how our new currency will be in the future. But for the next however long, collect as much shit as you can because your money's worthless. If you think your money's valuable, or fucking rocks in your head because you have $100 or $1,000 or $100,000 last year. You can't buy anything that you could have bought the year before or today, sorry, from last year or year before. So your money is losing its value and it's being taxed silently. They can give away as many tax breaks as they want because it's all adding to this. It's the cure that they are giving to this broken system, which is causing the death of it. So anyway, a part of the inflation problem is some citizens are insisting on keeping their savings in foreign currencies. The other part is the imported inputs due to increasing production. This government will not increase interest rates. On the contrary, we will continue lowering the rates. He added, urging Turks to take advantage of low-rate loans and invest. Right? So let's get it right. His inflation is now at 70% per month. Right? And he's saying, don't worry, we're going to drop our interest rates, keep investing, keep printing money, keep getting low. Because it gets to a point, the whole system implodes. It doesn't explode, it implodes on itself. So they need to keep printing this debt. How would, let's assume, right, let's go and look at the bank. Let's just run some common sense here. I'm just going to have a sip of water. So, let's assume we've got a bank, right? We've got one of the big four banks. Let's assume interest rates go up, whatever the case may be. If the bank is making $1 billion, let's say, right, and their wage bill is $900 million and they make $100 million profit. Let's just make up some bullshit numbers here, right? We've got $1 billion worth of income. We've got 900 grand in expenses, electricity, wages, all of that sort of shit. And we've got 100 million profit. Now let's imagine that the electricity went up by 4 times, the wage bill went up by 50%, and all these certain things had occurred, right? When all these things occurred, what have we got going on here? Oh, it's got messages coming through. So when these things occur to their bottom line, right, their expenses are 900 grand. If the bank's expenses suddenly go to $1.1 billion, they're now in the red 100 million a year. Question would be, how do they turn it around? One, they could increase interest rates. But if they increase interest rates, all their clients are going to go broke and they're going to need to get paid $500 million a year, not $1 billion a year. So how do they improve it? The only way that they can do it is to increase their loan book, right? And they need to lower the cost of money and they need to print and encourage people to spend as much as they can, which is exactly what has occurred in the last 2 years, which caused this property Ponzi, debt-based fiat Ponzi scheme orgy of cheap money. And it's going to blow up and they're going to have to do it again. And next time, it's going to be even bigger. And this cannot be controlled at this point. After this cycle, we will see hyperinflation. People will be scared. Go and watch the news. Listen to whoever you wish to. I'm just some dickhead on the internet, guys. Don't take me too serious. But my credentials are, I talked about this many years ago, and I've been walking us through before it happens. And, if the interest rates go up, I said multiple times that they can go up 0.25%, maybe 0.75%, maybe 1%, right? Any higher than 0.75%, 0.5%, 1%, whatever it is, everything's going to blow up. Let's wait and see. The next 12 months, 24 months will be a very fun time. What am I doing by? I've got $25 million worth of property that is settling, either has settled this year or is settling this year for myself. I want to keep expanding. That's just property. That's not any other assets that I'm buying. I've got tens of millions of dollars in other assets that I'm buying, which are not property related, and I'm not even going to go into. But there's opportunity out there. I want to take all of the shit off the board. This is the funnest, most exciting time to be alive. There's going to be winners, there's going to be losers, there's going to be people that are bad, there's people that you're going to need to extend a hand to if you're in a fortunate position to be able to help your friends, your family, or whatever. Make sure that they're all mentally prepped. Someone asked in the comments there, what are you doing to prepare? Like, you need to prepare, right? Like, having knowledge is being prepared. There's all different things you can do to prep. This isn't an episode to go and talk about prepping and what I'm doing to prepping. I actually covered on this about 6 months ago, so go through archives and you'll find some prepping videos there. But anyway, Turkey, lira, interest rates up, interest rates are falling. They've got higher inflation than ever before, and they're forced to put their interest rates down. Why are they forced to push their interest rates down? Because the bonds cannot sustain with inflation. They will blow up. So it becomes a point of 12 to 24 months after this sort of period that we start seeing the bonds imploding, and the markets need liquidity injected into them. So it needs more stimulus, which is what they're doing against the grain. And that's what we're going to see cause the hyperinflation. So whether that's in 2022, I doubt it. Whether it's 2023, possibly 2024, 2025, we will not see 2025 without the start of the hyperinflation. And we're in the hyperinflationary territory right now. So the lira slide, what's causing this? The lira slide, the war in Ukraine, and surging energy prices. Why is energy prices surging in the UK, the US, Canada, Turkey, Australia? Why? Because the system's fucked. We're going through we're seeing the crash of our currency, and the only way to save it is by trying to revive it, which will cause this hyperinflation. The annual consumer price inflation is at its highest level since 1998. Inflation began to jump last autumn after a 500 basis point rate easing cycle. So the interest rate last year came down by 5%, right? And now he's dropping it further. Erdogan zeroed the impacts of Russia's invasion on Ukraine. If there was no clash in the region, people would have been able to feel the concrete benefits of our economic program. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. whatever the fuck your name is. If that was the case, how come you had to drop the interest rates 500 points? 500 points, 5% in one hit before the war in Ukraine and Russia had occurred. Why did it occur? Just the same as when we look back, and people used to get offended and go, oh, Nathan, you can't call it a scandemic. And I've seen those videos of the nurses jumping around and they're celebrating, and I can't go to the local hardware. I've got to go to the Bunnings because it's safe there. I've seen all these things, right? People got offended by the fact I called it a scamdemic. But when I saw that in September, around September 10th to 20th in 2019, this whole banking system imploded, and then surprise, surprise, we've got a crisis here on our hands. It was all bullshit. If there was no clash in the region, people would have been able to fill the concrete report, blah, blah, blah. So here we are, hearing about Turkey, right? Here we are in Australia, US, UK, Canada, all of these Western. I hear about the rest of the world, right? I don't hear about Uzbekistan or wherever. I don't know these countries. I don't have a globe. I've never traveled there, right? These names of countries we never hear. But apparently the whole world, the rest of the world, is US, UK, Canada, New Zealand, right? China, and some people in Russia. That's all this world exists upon, apparently. That's what our global economy is. Why is this information suppressed? Why? I don't know anything. I'm not jumping in about Putin or Russia or Ukraine or anything like that. I don't know, right? But it's sus. Always question, because I don't trust the media, don't trust my government, don't trust what's being told to me, because I like seeking for information. So, yeah, with that, that's the end of it for today's slides and videos I want to talk about. I want to thank everyone for tuning in and listening in and having me as a part of your household. But I will go to your questions. I will read it and answer a few of these off. If you do have any questions about where to and how you can protect yourself, someone just said here, the logo looks like a devil. Love the conspiracy side. I just question a lot of these things because there is not one part on the rba.gov.au website that shows a crest of arms of Australia that owns it. It has a copyright. If you go to any other government website, it will have Australian coat of arms. The rba.gov does not. It says it reports to the Australian government and its agencies in the About Us section, which means that if it was the Australian government, it wouldn't be reporting to the Australian government because it would be the Australian government. And if it was one of its agencies, it wouldn't be referring to itself in the third person. So just a couple of questions I'd be questioning about that. Someone here wrote a word of a place. Pat, you might be correct there with your thing. Um, Nikki said, I remember Angelo Summersoft days. Yes, Angelo is who I was referring to. If Australia becomes China, will that mean that Tassie is North Korea? I don't think so, guys. Um, Even the Chinese system is being abolished. It will be gone, transformed into the new social credit system, 100%. Everyone's now got their digital wallets that they can access. All these grants that you can access, you need to go into your Service New South Wales app, your Health Pass, and everything's in there. Just by coincidentally, everyone signed themselves up to it by getting their thing done. So, unfortunately, I don't have a wallet, so I don't know how it's going to work for me, but we'll work our way around that. The economy is built on borrowed money, businesses being incentivized to borrow money. Exactly. The whole world, our whole financial system is made up of borrowed money. Even the dollars in your wallet, they only have a belief system because people have borrowed that and put it into existence. Agenda after agenda after agenda, 100%. I'm onto it. Thanks, Craig. Um, so, got lots of people commenting here. Um, if you had nothing today but 100 grand in the bank, how would you set yourself up for success through this period? It's a very good question. Um, for me, I'm blessed that I've made the decisions that I've made over the years, right? But it wasn't easy. It wasn't without risk. It wasn't without stress. I've got fucking heaps of grey hair on my face. My hair's all grey. I've worked hard. It didn't come from chance or luck or anything like that. Being able to put myself in the position was the choices that I took, which were difficult decisions, stressful decisions, and nothing was ever easy. If I was to redo it again, I would get here a lot quicker than what I did previously, and I would build my portfolio like I did. I would get there quicker because I understand how money works, and I wouldn't have the opinions and the fears and the setbacks that I had from making wrong decisions, from being fearful of the money. I would leverage myself up. I would take advantage of utilizing how the banks work. I've got a lot of people that have gone out and bought sort of 10, 15, 20 properties that are in this chat. Like I can see online, they've jumped in, jumped out, viewers, whatever. I can see a different dashboard than you guys can here. I've seen people on tonight, multiple people, which have bought 10, 15, 20 properties in 1, 2, 3 years, starting from 50 grand, 100 grand, 200 grand in their position. So I would build out my asset base. I would get all my debt that I could. I'd get my hands into as much debt as I could, and take advantage. Um, so I was saying the rat's tail. I'll show that in a minute. It's been platted today. It's been platted. There you go. It's platted. It's hiding. It's hiding. It's a bit shy today. It's cold. Um, with the portfolio, build up the portfolio, get as much debt as I can in the system, watch that debt be eroded during a hyperinflation. I'd be getting my cash flow replaced from needing to be forced into a job or forced into something that I wouldn't want to do. I would stock up on acreage. I'd stock up on farming. I'd have my own access to food, water, electricity, and I would have items that I could use to barter, whether that be business, stock, produce, whether it be things like crypto or precious metals. Just remembering, like things like crypto and precious metals, you can't. Um, there's no cash flow from, so they're very stale, right? They can go up with inflation, which is an opposite to your cash, but they're not something that's going to produce. So you can't have one penny. Like if I have one of these pennies and we all get blown up here to smithereens, and the Chinese submarines that are all off the shore of Australia nuke us, for example, this coin will still most likely be here and exist. It won't turn into 2 coins. It won't turn into 5 coins. It will still be one coin. It was here before I was born. It will be here after I'm dead. And that's how things go through time. That is just one coin. You can't double that, right? In the banking system, they like to leverage the shit and print as much as they can and call it a copper penny, but it's really a piece of paper, which is a IOU, which they can, go and print up. It doesn't bring in a cash flow. If you had a tree, for example, and you grew, I don't know, I was going to say tomatoes, but that sounds something funny, right? But if you had a tree and you're growing pineapples, you had a tree that you're growing avocados on, and you could build 2 trees or 5 trees or 10 trees, you could expand because you would have a growth occurring. I like assets, and I call my food and my trees and animals, whatever, an asset because you can expand and grow that. There's a protection. If you want to kill your chicken, you can kill your chicken and eat it. If you want to take the eggs from the chicken, you can keep having the eggs. If you want to take the eggs from the chicken and hatch them and have more chickens, having more eggs, and you can grow it out, there's all different things. Um, the Yeah, I'm all about growth. There's so many opportunities. Con just wrote, should we go ahead with taking on a business lease or pull the pin? I don't see any issues, right? Like, I think the world's going to keep going around, depending on what your business is. I've got offers that I've got. I'm in the process of buying a lot of different types of businesses. I buy businesses as well as property. I'm expanding businesses where people are, screwing things up, and I'm taking advantage of them. Um, I I just leased an office next door because I've got more staff starting. I couldn't buy it. I'm trying to buy more offices in my building, but I can't get them because no one wants to sell them. Yeah, so make a business decision. Make sure that your business strategy is sort of a recession-proof one. You don't want to be building yourself into a position which is not a recession-proof situation. Brock just said UST is like the AUD or USD. Look what happens when you print money in crypto. It dies, unlike our AUD, and that's a scam we live in. Well, I'll look at that, right? Like if we look at crypto, Luna, for those of you that are holding crypto, going to the moon and all that sort of stuff. I love crypto, so don't think I'm shitting on it. But Luna coin, it was worth 150 bucks allegedly, right? And now it's 0.0000001 of a cent. If we look at our dollar, right, and go back to those slides, which I'm not going to turn my head too far. I don't even know where the slides are. They are the Kim.com slides. Where are we? I don't know where they are. They're somewhere. They're somewhere. I've thrown them around. Oh, here it is here. We go back and we look at this chart, right? This is what our currency was going back in the 70s, and this is it here. If we flipped it upside down and say this is what our currency could have bought, and this is the devaluation of the currency, those yields are inverted. The charts are inverted. So the more money they're printing over here, at that same time, it has less purchasing power. Very, very important. Very important to understand how that works. Tommy, hope you're doing well, mate. I'm watching this with my neighbor Carlos. Hey, Carlos, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you join it to Birch Feed as well, if you're not already. He has asked, asking if now is a good time to refinance with another institution. if you can find a variable rate or wait for the rates to decrease again. I think whenever you get the opportunity to see if you can refinance to a better rate, see if you can refinance and pull out equity. There's a lot of people out there that are not pulling out equity. You might have access to, you know, 100 grand equity. But if you don't take that equity today, you may not service for it in 3 months' time. If you don't pull that equity out, the bank valuer might be a bit more conservative and not give you that equity in 3 months' time. So I think if you can get access to the capital, try and restructure your debt the best you can, and keep the powder dry to the side to to take action. If there's opportunities out there and you've got no money, well, then how are you going to take advantage of the situation? If you can get access to that, and that comes from, I think everybody should sort of review their mortgages once a year. So if you have got a mortgage, you want to see if you can save an interest rate, if you do want to get a better deal. I was just chatting to one of my brokers here before I went live. Um, one of our investors was able, one of our clients on their principal place of residence was able to get a new loan at like 2.6% today. Naturally, that'll probably go up to 3%, but rates, you can still get very cheap rates out there. None of my loans are fixed. I'm not selling any assets. I may actually, and this is something a bit different, just in case anyone sees anything out there. I may be selling one or two properties because I want to unlock a few $1,000,000 to be able to purchase some other assets, which I've got my hands onto recently. So yeah, that's the only reason why I'm selling one or two. But looking at my position, I'm not selling assets. I'm looking at this as being the best opportunity to be able to go and clean up and pick up more assets. So as I said, $25 million worth of property to settle this year, plus other sort of business interests, which will equal similar sort of levels. I expect to expand that even further. I said I'm going to be a billionaire by 40. I've still got another 3 years, 4 years to get there. And that's what I'm going to do to hustle to get there. Forget refinancing in a timely matter if you're self-employed. Um, uh, depends. If you're self-employed, reach out to us. I have a finance company for those of you that are new around here called Zinger Finance. There's a comment on the caption today, whether it's above, below, beside, wherever you're watching this from. If you are sort of concerned about your position, if you do need help, guidance, support on your position, reach out to my team. You can click there. It's free for a discovery session. Click on the link, book into a discovery session with my team. If you need help with finance, I'll put you in contact with finance. If your properties aren't getting the optimal rent, like this is the best opportunity. Like I literally put my rents up $50, $100, whatever. My income's increasing like this. I don't need to do anything. Like the system's taking care of it for me. I've got the assets to do so. Make sure that your team, being your property manager, is managing the revenue on your assets. Your broker is getting you the best rates for your loans. Try and tweak the processes here. I've seen people in the last 2 years, 3 years, save 50 grand a year in mortgage interest rate and increase their rents by 50 grand a year. They're retired. They don't need to do shit, right? They don't have to get up to work tomorrow. They don't have to go get the poison. They don't have to go do anything. So that's a position that I think everybody should be aiming for, to be able to live life on their terms, do what they want, how they want, be yourself, like enjoy your life. So, yeah, that's important. Your income will not go up with the level of hyperinflation. It never does. But if you've got assets that can be scaled through a hyperinflation, you've got 10 fishing rods in the ocean and you've got a big trawler there capturing all the fish in the ocean, instead of sitting there trying to catch a fish with one of those little hand reels where you're throwing it out with a bit of bread attached to it. You're catching fish on a commercial scale. Your job is a little hook in the ocean, hand reel, reeling it in. Whereas you want to be fishing with dynamite. So yeah. What other comments we got here? A couple of people saying about Rat's Tail. It's growing. It's growing. Post this up so you can watch it in full. After these videos go live, a few things occur. Firstly, the video gets saved. You can come back and watch this later. You just won't be live in the comment section. Secondly, these videos get uploaded to YouTube. I'm also going to ask my Carol in my office to see if we can put these as podcasts as well, so we can have the Tuesday Night Live replays on podcast. Uh, Daryl asks, "Hey mate, wondering what your thoughts are about the prospects of the Harvey Bay area. I was buying in areas of Harvey Bay for about 150k. Now they're all like 300 entry prices. I like the market. There's been a lot of growth, but would I be going out and sinking all my cash in there? I'm still very much more excited by the markets that haven't gone up. So literally here in 2022, I'm picking up properties for myself and for my investors, which are cheaper than what they were 10 years ago. So just think about that, right? If you can go to an area, find a property that's cheaper than what some idiot paid 100 grand more 10 years ago. We've seen interest rates at 8%. Now they're at 3% or whatever they are today. We've got rents that have gone up from $200 to $350. These things are positive cash flow. They're below rebuild cost, etc. There are markets out there that have not seen the full brunt of what we've seen recently. And as we start going into a market where people can't get the financing like they were, and because of higher rates, they'll be seeking out for money flows to go into these sort of assets. Justin, I hope you're doing well, mate. Let me know when you want to chat. Lots of comments here. What do we got here? Can you assist with a business loan or line of credit? Yes, I can't personally, but my team have got like a dozen brokers. I actually just instructed for us to get 10 more broker support team, right? So 10 more finance staff. If you are looking to start your career as a mortgage broker, you live in Sydney, we've got a great training program, a great mentor, which is Rose. You've met Rose before on these videos. Rose has been my personal broker for like 15 years. I don't know why I'm looking out there. No one's here in my office tonight. But yeah, like our mortgage brokering business is growing in all different ways. We can help you with mortgage loans, help you out. If it's to do with finance, we can help you with finance. A mate gave away his TV this weekend. He believes the mainstream media is scaremongering people to fixed rates and somehow banks are connected. He also works in the media. Your thoughts? Oh, it's a good one, Kate. It's a good one. Exactly. I commented on that beforehand, right? If let's just think about Will the evil business person, right? We could go on, create a scenario on the TV, right? Let's call it a virus escapes, right? And then we come in with we own the media, we go give them the problem, reaction, solution, right? Everyone reacts and we give them the solution, right? So what do we have happening here? We've got a crash of a monetary system. We've got to do a few little tweaky so we can clean up everything we want. We then use the propaganda, we create a problem, we then create fear, and we create a solution of saying fix the interest rates. And now the banks are winning because they're getting people locked in for 5 years, locked in for 3 years, fixing their interest rates. And they know that those people are now trapped. If they want to get out, they can't. So then the value of their portfolio or their bank has gone up tremendously, and they can sell off that product as a derivative to another institution. And it solidifies their profits. So it would be a great business model. Imagine you're getting 3% as a return. You could double your revenue by charging someone some stupid fixed rate. They fix it in, and then you drop the interest rates anyway, because that's what's going to happen. So just be mindful on that front, right? I'm not saying to fix rates, not to fix rates. So you do whatever makes you happy, right? It's not going to change how I sleep tonight, or it's not going to change the bed that I sleep in. I sleep in a really cool bed, by the way. It's one of those ones that go up with the remote, and you can go with the old man beds, like I'm getting old nowadays. But yeah, whatever bed you wish to sleep in, make sure your decisions. Josh, apologies, mate. Apologies, brother. I need to call you. So I know you know a great broker. I need to give you a buzz. I'll call you shortly. Gergs, what would you do if someone has, example, 1 million cash in the bank? How would you invest that? Can't use the bank's money to obtain debt to buy a property, no finance. You're giving me a bit of information, but I don't know how big the piece of string is. If you want some more answers to your question about how you could use $1 million in your scenario, I'd suggest to click on the link, have a chat with my team. Um, just as a little bit of feedback for everyone as well, um, when I work with my investors, I work one on one. I actually do all the acquisitions, the strategy, and building of the portfolios for everybody. I can't do that forever. As I said, I make money when I sleep because my property rents have gone up. Like I've got all these business things that I'm doing, all these different things. I physically am in the business working with everyone to get um, through this market and get everyone to a really cool position. I won't be able to do that forever. So, just some of you, I know sometimes people say, Nathan, do you do the deals? Do you build my portfolio? Do you give me the guidance? I'm no financial advisor. I've said that like 3 times tonight, but I do every single one of my investors. I work on their portfolio personally to get them to their goals. Um, my team are very good at what they do. You've seen a couple of my team beforehand on these videos. I do every map session myself. Um, the free discovery session, speak to the team. If you want to book in for a one-on-one map session, speak to the team. They can book something in for us. Um, your position of 1 million in the scenario of what you've put there is a $1 million scenario. There's many variables. The question I would be asking is, what am I trying to achieve? Why can't I get the servicing? How can I get that $1 million, hypothetically, whatever the figure is? How can I get $1 million to get me back happy with the bank so I can service more? I've actually got food. I dropped my food because I was eating on the run beforehand on my arm. What can I do in order to um, get there? That's the question I'd be asking. But yeah, so with it, yeah. Daniel, I think billionaire by 40 is a bad goal because inflation plays a heavy role. While you might not be richer, better set your goal is 1,000 times the average net worth or income or something like that. Very good point. Um, I laugh about it because when I said I'd be a billionaire by 40, I was 30, and I said in 10 years I'll get there. I didn't know exactly how I'd get there, but I knew that the moves that I'd be making would be getting me closer to that. And yeah, you're right. Like hyperinflation would get me there easy. It'll make everybody a billionaire, but a billionaire not being able to afford a carton of eggs wouldn't be an attractive thing to have. So you're right, and every year I keep trying to increase my asset position, whether it be X amount of properties, X amount of doors, X amount of revenue, X amount of position on top of last year. So you want to see year on year growth with your position. So it's important to make sure that you're planning based around today, but also inflation adjusted, positions, and that's where property is my favorite tool. But there's lots of other things that I like for liquidity and protecting myself and protecting, all those that are around me. Um, Mark, I need to get your help, I think. And if I can help out in any way, reach out. The phone number in my office is 1300 367 925. That's 1300 367 925. But yeah, just click on the link wherever it is on the screen. Um, yeah, book in a discovery session with my team. If you want to deal with me directly, speak to my team. They can organise something for you on that front. Someone said I was a millionaire in Bali in 2009. Exactly, right? We can be a trillionaire, right? There's trillionaires in Zimbabwe without food, looking very ill with skeletons showing, right? You can be a trillionaire, but the money is only what the belief is in that currency. The importance to have wealth that's I always talk about is intergenerational wealth that you can hand over through, multiple generations. So, yeah, being able to create that, that's what we specialize in. That's what I've set out over a decade ago to help people do, and I've never seen such a greater time we've seen in the last couple of years. I was so happy when Corona started. I was like, wow, I never thought that I'm going to blame it on this excuse that they have. But we have got a crash of our system that's occurring right now. So, yeah, very exciting times. If you need help, reach out. You know where to find us. On that note, I can see I've been here for 1 hour and 45 minutes. I want to thank you all for watching. Don't be scared. There will be opportunities. There will be a lot of people getting hurt. There will be pros. There will be cons for this. Every coin has two sides to it. Make sure you're on the right side of the coin. If you need help, We're here. And until next week, keep being awesome. I'll see you next Tuesday. Bye for now.